Welcome back to Son of Chelsea. Daniel Childs here. Hope you're doing really well on this Tuesday afternoon / evening, probably by the time you're listening to this. Yes, we are mere hours away from the Bournemouth game, but I wanted to get a news show out because when Chelsea play, that's going to be the main focus. And we also know with transfer stories how quickly it moves, how quickly it's moved even in the time since last night when I first saw the Mathys Tel story from Bayern Munich and how that impacts Christopher Nkunku. We've had stories today from Matt Law about some mystery box defender. We're going to get into all of it today. I'll give you my thoughts on the breakdown. Please like, subscribe, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Also want to say a massive thank you to the guys from Alloy Collectors. You see it here on the studio. It's been such a lovely addition to the studio. The metal Chelsea home shirts. You can get yourself one of this season's kit, last season's kit, the classic 98 kit, and I know they've got more retro kits coming as well. Great guys who make it, and really good quality collectibles that are officially licensed by Chelsea as well. But you can get yourself 15% off at checkout using my discount code SonOfChelsea, link in the description box below. Even though we are past the festive period, still think it's a great collectible to get. Maybe you've got a friend who's a Chelsea fan who's having a birthday, or you just want to treat yourself. Maybe you're in those kind of January blues, which I fully appreciate because this month is never ending. So let's jump into it. So it all blew up last night with Mathys Tel being linked to Chelsea. That then leading to reports of a potential swap deal with Christopher Nkunku going the other way. Many people have reported this, but I'm just going to be looking at Matt Law and David Ornstein, and then we'll look at some of the numbers around Mathys Tel. Look at actually the player in depth a bit more and whether he would be a good addition for Chelsea. So this is from David Ornstein in The Athletic. Headline, Chelsea make inquiry to sign Mathys Tel from Bayern Munich. Tel is only 19 years old and has made 7 appearances in all competitions for Bayern so far this season without finding the back of the net. The versatile attacker joined Bayern from French side Rennes and has played 59 league games for the 33-time German champion since then. And then there's some interesting analysis about this player, Tel, from Seb Stafford-Bloor, who I believe writes almost exclusively now about German football for The Athletic. So someone who knows German football, someone who's watched this player extensively. And he said, Tel has a future as an outright number 9. He's a mighty talent. His progress may have stalled this season. He has played just 237 minutes of football for Bayern, but he could grow into one of the most dangerous inside forwards in Europe. He's a skillful and dynamic goalscorer who still has some rough edges, but has as much unrealised potential as any player in the Bundesliga. He needs to play if he is to evolve, and he really needs to learn his best position. Tel has appeared either on the left for Bayern or otherwise through the middle as a centre forward, with Harry Kane, the most expensive player in German history, blocking his path. There's been little chance to explore whether Tel has a future as an outright number 9, and Chelsea could have fun finding out. Looking at some of his numbers from last season, not this season, as I say, he struggled for minutes a bit like Nkunku this year. From 23-24, he was in the 98th percentile for non-penalty goals, 96th for assists, 83rd percentile for XG plus expected assists, 81st for progressive runs, 81st percentile for attacking actions. And then versus top 5 league under 19 players, so players in an age bracket to him, he was first for goals, non-penalty goals, assists, headed goals, and passes into the penalty area. And I wanted to bring up this tweet from Connor Holden, who's a Chelsea fan, but he does a lot of good analysis, not only on Chelsea, but football, and just giving his general thoughts about the player. He's a left-wing centre-forward hybrid, Gakpo-Rashford-esque frame, directness, cutting inside onto his right foot, ball striking is outrageous. The goal-scoring sense is especially arriving at the back post, another thing I've been calling out for. Clever inside movements, has the nose for a goal. Trust his quality, shot volume high, 3 per 90 this season despite low minutes. Elastic dribbler, combination play in field to find box entries, has the pace, power to also be a transition threat and hold width, although not best to pin him there at all times. A two-way goal-scoring winger who adds everything we want as another left side option alongside Sancho, and then he ends in full caps, get it done. So I'm honest with you guys, if I don't know that much about a player, I say as much, and I really don't know that much about Mathys Tel, and I think that, you know, although he plays for one of, you know, the big clubs, you know, when the more focus, I guess, from an English perspective, when I've watched the rare times I've watched Bayern, obviously you're looking at Harry Kane. In recent years, you've been looking at Leroy Sané. You know, it obviously has not been deemed one of their big superstars, but I know from people who I respect, the moment these links came out, very excited about the player. Now, it's not quite the striker option that maybe a lot of us were thinking Chelsea needed this month. However, looking into Tel today, and I was just looking, and there is a comparison between him and Jackson, because of course we signed Jackson, obviously a very different club he signed from, but Jackson of course played a lot of football out wide before becoming a centre forward. So the idea that you can't make a good transition from a wide player or an inside forward into a centre forward is obviously silly. Like Gakpo can play there, Rashford can play there. Actually, in the modern era, we have seen a transition where we look at forwards rather than exclusively strikers. Now, Maresca as a coach is more kind of favourable to, I guess, traditional strikers. However, we talked last week, if we talk about like goals in the team, Chelsea have lacked goals from wide areas. They really have. When you take out the goals from Nkunku, mostly, of course, not in the Premier League, Palmer and Jackson, you're really struggling. You're under 10, and Madueke is the best there at 5, so it's not been great. So I understand the need for that, and then you combine this with, of course, the Nkunku situation. Chelsea are in a bit of a weird but privileged position with Nkunku because he's such a talented footballer who's still banging in goals, who I think will go somewhere and become a star once again, that Chelsea can probably accrue most of the fee they originally paid for him, if not maybe a little bit more. Now, just go into Matt Law's piece, which is kind of the latest information we have. They want about 65 million for Christopher Nkunku, and the justification for that is because Napoli are demanding around that price. Kvaratskhelia, of course, their talented winger, and Chelsea believe that Nkunku, who of course is the club's joint top goal scorer this season with 13, as a player with a comparable value. It's unknown whether or not Bayern are prepared to meet Chelsea's valuation of Nkunku, whether the Germans will attempt to negotiate a lower price. It is believed that the player has already indicated a desire to make the switch and that personal terms would not be a problem. Chelsea are also adamant that Nkunku would need to be replaced this month and are currently looking at right-sided attackers who can play off the left or through the middle. Tel falls into that bracket, while Chelsea obviously are looking at some other names that we've already talked about this month. Another small thing about Matt Law's piece is that Chelsea remain in the market for a central defender. Disasi likely to leave the club. Gehi is obviously on the list of options, but there is also apparently this young, so far unnamed, as Matt Law describes, centre-back lined up for the summer whose move they could look to try and accelerate. Not going to spend this show theorising on who that is, because it could be anyone, right? So there's kind of no point. There's a lot of this, right, in terms of Nkunku. I think it's a bit of a shame that Nkunku, I was looking at his Premier League minutes, it's like under 1,000 Premier League minutes for Chelsea, or close to. It's wild that Nkunku's going to leave Chelsea. He could potentially leave Chelsea this month, which I did not see coming. I did not think he'd leave Chelsea this month. I thought he would wait till the summer. I think Chelsea would have waited till the summer. However, if you're going to sell him for that money, and it's kind of a swap deal, you kind of nowadays, they're not really a swap deal in the sense that you're getting cut prices of a player, but we've seen it before, where a player, we saw it over the summer with Conor Gallagher and Joao Felix, right? Like eventually Chelsea found that compromise, and maybe there is a compromise here. Maybe there's a compromise for Tel because he's looking at it as a footballer, and whatever Bayern are saying publicly. You've also got to factor in that, yes, I believe it was Bayern sporting director came out today and said he's not for sale. We're excited for him to be here for the future. Chelsea are adamant as well that they want a certain price and would not like to lose players. Maresca's saying the same in press conferences. We've got to understand, we can't take everything clubs say and even what gets briefed as club at face value. There's negotiating here. Enzo Fernandez at the start and mid and most of the way through that January when we signed him, it looked like Benfica were hostile to selling him. And then what happened? Chelsea met that valuation, a compromise was found, and Enzo Fernandez became a Chelsea player. This is how transfer business is done. Why would Bayern publicly put themselves in a negotiating position that makes them weaker? Why would Chelsea put themselves in a negotiating position that's weaker? That does not mean the deal is dead. And the fact that these reports have come out makes me kind of feel, and the people who are reporting it makes me feel that this deal has kind of already been in the works, and it's said as much that Chelsea have looked at this player before. So it's quite clear there's been some groundwork put in. Now, I want to ask you guys, because it's not the same as signing Liam Delap. Like, Liam Delap currently, in terms of profile, is a classic centre-forward, or at least definitely is a centre-forward, and also has scored a number of Premier League goals. Tel is at a moment where he has a lot of talent, and he had a really good season last time out. However, it's not the same maybe pedigree or the same kind of stature that most people would kind of look at. Not to say that Tel won't have a fantastic career. It's just in terms of what Chelsea maybe immediately need, because I guess the argument and the fear I would have with Tel is that maybe you're buying what we did in 2023 with the likes of, it's unfair because I think Tel's probably a better footballer than Mykhailo Mudryk, but Madueke and players from a foreign league who have to come in and it takes them a bit to adapt. I said earlier in the month, I'm very rigid on the fact that if Chelsea buy players, I like buying from the Premier League because I think the adaptation happens a lot quicker. However, there are exceptions to that. But I think that Tel obviously is a very talented footballer, and it kind of, kills two birds with one stone, really. You're sorting out this Christopher Nkunku situation. You're probably going to get a hefty fee for it if the deal comes off. But then also you're buying a player that you probably need to sign anyway. And also, if Mudryk's career has no future at Chelsea, dependent on what happens with this test or not, there's also that part of it that we've discussed in recent weeks. So I think we're going to have a little bit more of a look at this player and whether you think it's the right player to bring in, because it's about having a variety of forwards too. And the goal scoring of Chelsea's wide players, even if you take out Nicholas Jackson, who's got a lot of scrutiny recently, it hasn't been incredible. It hasn't been astonishing. So I think the argument that Chelsea can't get any better in wide areas is a little bit silly. And it fits the profile of players Chelsea have signed under this ownership, particularly the sporting director regime. I kind of think that with Tel, they'll be able to claim it as one of their own. I always kind of have it in the back of my mind that has the Nkunku situation turned into this weird scenario where he's still scoring goals, but he's maybe going to leave Chelsea without ever seriously getting a serious run in the first team. That doesn't seem to add up to me. It's just a little bit strange, but he wasn't bought under this sporting director team, so does that impact it? Let me know your thoughts. Are you a big fan of Tel? Do you think it'd be a brilliant signing before now and the end of the window, or are there other players? Do you actually think a more traditional number 9? But then you look, as Connor Holden pointed out with the comparisons to Gakpo and Rashford. Obviously, Rashford is in a very difficult place at the moment, but especially Gakpo. Gakpo has been a really good player for Liverpool this year. I think he's a very, very good forward and is someone that can operate and have the flexibility where you could play Tel and Jackson in the same team, which is quite exciting. So I think tonight obviously is a huge game for Chelsea. I think winning would be big for kind of the mood being lifted around the club, and it really does maybe soften the strain and kind of stress of signing players, because if Chelsea's bad form continues, it only increases the stress on this window. I'm not saying that if Chelsea win tonight, you don't go out and sign Tel, you don't try and improve centre-back. Obviously I still firmly believe that no matter what the result is tonight. But obviously I think it's important for Chelsea to get on the pitch and quieten down some of the chatter that's been happening over the past few weeks, because the longer that winless run in the Premier League goes on, the more criticism validly will come towards Enzo Maresca. So let's hope it is a big win, and I'm sat here tonight talking about it. So those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Follow me across the socials at SonOfChelsea, and I will see you again very soon. All the best.